and generations. But today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to 4 November 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea. Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities. Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics. Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm. Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability. Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, The South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to 4 November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, Bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to 4 November 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea. Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities. Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics. Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm. Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability. Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first
alternate member of Central Committee of Communist Party of Vietnam, Permanent Deputy Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Dr. Nguyễn Hùng Sơn, President of Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 17th South China Sea International Conference hosted by Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam with the theme, Unities in Uncertainties. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes are: please put your devices on silent mode. Only use the microphone when it's your turn to speak. For our online participants, please use the raise hand function or drop your question on the Q&A box during discussion. Our event is live streamed on Facebook, Nghiên cứu Biển Đông, live streamed on YouTube South China Sea Connects, and live tweeted via South China Sea Connect. Our conference will commence with the opening ceremony. Without further ado, it's my honor to invite Dr. Nguyễn Hùng Sơn, the President of Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, to deliver our opening speech. Dr. Nguyễn Hùng Sơn, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Dr. Nguyễn Mạnh Cường, Member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam. Excellency Associate Professor Lê Hải Bình, Alternate Member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Permanent Deputy Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism. Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished experts, renowned diplomats, and esteemed guests. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 17th South China Sea Conference with the theme, Unity in Uncertainties in Da Nang, Vietnam. I'd also like to offer a warm welcome to those who's joining us online. Your presence is just as important as we are thrilled to have you online attendance here in Da Nang. The city of Da Nang is special in many ways. Historically, Da Nang has always been a land of diverse culture and ethnicity, a landing point of many trading powers seeking commerce with this vibrant community, as well as military powers pursuing geopolitical influence. Today, Da Nang is no different. It is still a preferred landing point of many who come to this region from near and far. But Da Nang has been able to turn the tide of interest into fortune. Today, Da Nang City is known to be one of the fastest growing cities in Vietnam, a maritime center of the nation, aiming to become a regional hub for growth and connectivity by 2030, a place to unite us all. The annual South China Sea Conference, organized by the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, carries similar spirit. Over the past 16 years, we have laid the groundwork to establish a hub for growth and connection, thereby promoting peace, stability, and prosperity, not just in the South China Sea, but also in the region and the global maritime domain. Year after year, we have sought to bring together the most respected experts and authoritative analysts from an ever-expanding geographical footprint to this gathering, helping us better understand the latest dynamics and multidimensional developments in the area, widely regarded as the epicentrum of the Indo-Pacific. Events in the South China Sea not only shape the future of Southeast Asia, but also have far-reaching consequences beyond this region. At a time of tectonic shift, rapid global transformation, and great uncertainty, we believe that fostering more dialogue is essential, not only to promote understanding and trust, dispel ambiguity, and clarify misconception, but also to mitigate risk arising from miscalculation and misunderstanding. Such dialogue helps strengthen our shared understanding of the rules of the road and the code of conduct that bind countries and communities together. This year, we are delighted to welcome nearly 50 speakers and 300 delegates from more than 30 nations and territories, with hundreds more joining us online. I'd like to warmly welcome the latest member of the ASEAN family, Timor-Leste, who is participating for the first time in this forum as an ASEAN member. Please welcome. I would also like to welcome for the first time ever the participation of experts from the Pacific Island countries. As has long been tradition of this conference series, engaging the next generation is a very important part of this event. This year, we are thrilled to welcome a strong cohort of young and emerging experts, the DAV captains. Where are you? The students from Da Nang and Duy Tân universities. Where are you? And especially the 8 international young leaders who were selected from among the 1,700 applicants. I am confident they will bring fresh perspective and innovative ideas to both long-standing and newly emerging issues of our time. Since its inception, the Diplomatic Corps has played a crucial role in promoting dialogue at this conference. To reflect the growing interest and contributions of the ambassadors, we have created a dedicated session this year titled Ambassadors Lounge, a new platform for informal exchanges among ambassadors and with the ambassadors. Finally, to help you frame this year's discussion and take stock of what has been discussed in the years before, we are introducing our annual publication, a South China Sea report, an informative and detailed report analysis of the South China Sea in the past year. We hope that you will grab this report outside of the conference room and find the report useful for your research on the topic. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the conference could not have been organized without the support of all of you here today and many of our valued partners. So I'd like to take this opportunity to express a few words of gratitude. On behalf of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, I would like to thank all of you and every of the panelists, moderators, and the scholars who are participating in this conference for your contributions and your presence. Your presence here is a reminder that even in the face of seemingly unmovable challenges, we continue to press forward. A special thank also goes to the local government and the people of Da Nang. Their warm welcome and hospitality, which greatly valued, is absolutely essential in helping us organize this conference. Our heartfelt appreciation also goes to our dedicated partners, including the Vietnam Lawyers Association, the Foundation for East Sea Studies, Australia, British, Canada embassies in Hanoi, the European Union delegation in Hanoi, and the Vietnam-Australia Center. Our thanks also go to our dedicated longtime partners, the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and ICIWA Plus project. Your unwavering support continues to elevate the South China Sea Conference series as a prominent platform for dialogue and cooperation. And last but not least, I wish to highlight the work of my dear colleagues at the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, whose month-long dedication have been extremely essential in bringing us together here today. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I wish the conference a great success, and I hope that you will find a lot of useful ideas during the discussion at the conference. And now, I have the honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Dr. Nguyễn Mạnh Cường, member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam and Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, to deliver his keynote address. Excellency.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed scholars, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and sincere pleasure for me to welcome you all to Vietnam and to this important gathering. On behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I extend our warmest greetings and deep appreciation for your friendship and your commitment to promoting peace, stability, and cooperation in our region. It is especially meaningful that this year's conference takes place in Da Nang, a city whose ancient Cham name means the Great River Mouth. Here, the Han River flows into the sea, and here, the land reaches out to embrace the ocean. For centuries, generations of Vietnamese have crossed these waters, connecting islands and shores, trading goods and ideas, carrying not just commerce, but also the spirit of dialogue and peace. Da Nang was once a vibrant crossroads of trade and culture, and it remains today a living symbol of Vietnam's openness, creativity, and readiness to engage the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's conference, Unity in Uncertainty, captures both the reality of our time and our shared aspiration. We live in an age where uncertainty has become the new normal, and where the line between peace and tension, competition and cooperation grows ever thinner. In such a world, unity is not about avoiding uncertainty. It is about confronting it with courage, with faith in dialogue, in law, and in our shared humanity. Distinguished delegates, our world today is more fragile than any point in recent memory, not only because of conflicts, but because the very foundation of the international order are under strain. Principles that shaped the post-World War II era, multilateralism, respect for international law, and cooperation for the common good are showing signs of erosion. From Eastern Europe to Middle East, wars persist. Millions are displaced, and hundreds of millions more living under the shadow of insecurity, uncertain about food, energy, jobs, and future. Even the Asia-Pacific, long seen as the world's most dynamic region, is not immune. The winds of uncertainty reach our shores too, reminding us that peace and prosperity must never be taken for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, the South China Sea is more than a body of water. It is a mirror of regional and global change. Though it covers just 3.5 million square kilometers, it has become home to persistent dispute and a key arena of strategic competition. Each show of force and every unilateral action adds tension to an already fragile environment. The real danger lies not only in clashes at sea or in the air, but in the slow erosion of trust and restraint, the habits of peaceful coexistence built over decades. Actions and claims beyond what is permitted under the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea threaten not only regional stability, but also the very legal foundation of fairness and equality among nations. We also face the unsettling rise of selective interpretations of UNCLOS, and in some quarters, the notion that might makes right. At the same time, new technologies, artificial intelligence, unmanned systems, satellite surveillance are creating new gray zones. Climate change and environmental degradation are posing human security challenges that indeed endanger the livelihoods of millions. Yet even in uncertainty lies opportunity. The chance for all nations to reaffirm what bind us: dialogue, cooperation, and respect for international law. Peace and stability in the South China Sea are not the concern of a few. They are the lifeline of many, underpinning prosperity across the whole Indo-Pacific and East Asia. Dear colleagues and friends, Vietnam's foreign policy remains one of independence, self-reliance, peace, cooperation, and development. We attach the highest importance to maintaining regional peace and stability, and uphold the centrality of international law, especially UNCLOS, the foundation for all activities at sea. We are committed to resolving all disputes peacefully, building trust, and managing differences responsibly. Vietnam stands ready to work with all partners to ensure our shared seas remain seas of peace, stability, and prosperity. Vietnam is proud to be among the first 60 countries to ratify the Agreement on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, demonstrating our enduring commitment to international law and multilateralism. We continue to support ASEAN's central role and actively contribute to ASEAN-led mechanisms. We are engaging constructively in the negotiations on the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, aiming to ensure that our waters remain peaceful, stable, and governed by shared norms and rules. Vietnam has also nominated experts to international judicial bodies, including the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, contributing to the fair and forward-looking interpretation of UNCLOS. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that unity does not mean uniformity. It is about finding common ground amid diversity, respecting differences while upholding shared purposes and responsibilities. When nations act based on international law and mutual respect, we can turn the South China Sea from a space of uncertainty into one of trust and cooperation. In uncertain times, UNCLOS must be our anchor, cooperation must be our path, and trust must be our bridge, guiding us toward a more peaceful and humane world. Distinguished colleagues and guests, for more than 17 years, this international conference has been a trusted space for open, frank, and constructive dialogue, where diverse voices are heard with respect, and where scholars and policymakers seek common ground. Its greatest value lies not only in its recommendations, but in the culture of dialogue it has nurtured, a culture of sincerity and respect that has helped our nation remain calm and cooperative amid turbulence. That, perhaps, is its enduring legacy, keeping alive the spirit of understanding and engagement that our times so urgently need. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, esteemed scholars, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue this noble journey, may this conference once again inspire new thinking, fresh ideas, and renewed determination to manage differences peacefully and to uphold the principles of international law that unite us all. From this city where the river meets the sea, let us hold fast to faith in a South China Sea of peace, stability, and cooperation. Just as 100 rivers flow into one vast ocean, our diverse path can lead us toward one shared future of harmony, respect, and common purpose. I wish this conference great success, and to all of you, excellencies, distinguished colleagues and friends, good health, inspiration, and enduring friendship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for your keynote speech highlighting Vietnam's commitment to peace, cooperation, and respect for international law. Next, we are very pleased to present a special video message from the Honorable Sima Mehrotra, Member of Parliament, Parliamentary and the Secretary of State for Indo-Pacific at the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and a Minister for Equalities at the Department of Education.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you from London, and I'm grateful to the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam for bringing us together. Just last week, I met General Secretary To Lam during his visit to the United Kingdom. This marked a new chapter in our partnership with Vietnam, with our new comprehensive strategic partnership opening up fresh opportunities for cooperation, including on maritime security. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to reiterate the UK's enduring commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, to regional peace, prosperity and stability, and to the international rules that underpin this. That's why the Royal Navy continues to operate in the region, exercising rights under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. This year, our carrier strike group visited over 10 countries, joined several multinational exercises, and strengthened ties across the Indo-Pacific. There's no doubting the importance of the South China Sea. A third of the world's maritime trade passes through it. Millions depend on it for their livelihood. What happens there affects us all. That's why it's vital to keep trade routes open and safe for the sake of our shared prosperity. Against that backdrop, recent incidents have been deeply concerning. Dangerous tactics, including the use of water cannons against Philippine vessels, have increased the risk of serious miscalculation and escalation. The UK does not take sides in sovereignty disputes in the South China Sea, but we do speak out against actions that raise tensions or undermine international law. In a joint note verbal to the UN this March, we made clear that all maritime claims in the South China Sea should be made and peacefully resolved in accordance with UNCLOS. We are working with partners to strengthen maritime security. For example, the UK Hydrographic Office is helping improve maritime domain awareness and support of exclusive economic zones. ASEAN's role remains central to supporting stability across the region. We were pleased to observe the expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum this year and continue to support the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific and the ASEAN Maritime Outlook. And we welcome ongoing negotiations between China and ASEAN on a code of conduct on the South China Sea, one that must respect UNCLOS and reflect the legitimate interests of all. The UK will continue working with you, not just today, but in the years ahead, to support a peaceful, stable South China Sea. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful conference.
Thank you, the Honourable, for your thoughtful and encouraging messages. We will now proceed to the photo session before continuing our program. So for the first photo, may I kindly invite His Excellency Dr. Nguyễn Mạnh Cường, Member of Central Committee of Communist Party of Vietnam and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam. His Excellency Associate Professor Lê Hải Bình, alternate member of Central Committee of Communist Party of Vietnam, Permanent Deputy Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism. Dr. Nguyễn Hùng Sơn, President of Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, and all speakers and moderators to please come up to the stage. Thank you, Your Excellencies and Honorables. Please stay on the stage for the second photo. For the second group photo, may I also invite our DV partners, ambassadors, and representatives from embassies and consulates to join us on stage for a group photo. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our photo session. Now we begin to invite all of you to join a coffee break outside the conference hall. Please enjoy it before we move to our first thematic session at 10 a.m. Thank you very much. For online participants, thank you for your support. Please stay tuned and we will be back in 15 minutes for session 1. Thank you.
The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, There lies a simple truth. Only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to 4 November 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea. Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities. Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics. Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm. Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability. Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, From climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power, the South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a driving force for sustainable blue ocean development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea? Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities? Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics? Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm? Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability? Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a Driving Force for Sustainable Blue Ocean Development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose. The sea has always been a bridge, connecting lands, cultures, and generations, but today, the waters that unite us also reflect the uncertainties of our time. Uncertainties come in many tides, from climate change and resource competition, to evolving geopolitics and shifting global power. The South China Sea stands at the heart of it all, with uncertainties stemming from multiple domains.
We all know that the South China Sea is a very volatile part of real estate, and what happened here certainly had the potential to be much worse.
The first 10 months of 2025 have witnessed clashes between claimants occurred at Scarborough Shoal, Sabina Shoal, Sandy Cay, and surrounding areas. More than 100 unilateral, bilateral and multilateral exercises took place in the first 10 months. Yet amid these complexities, there lies a simple truth: only through unity can we navigate uncertainty. Against this backdrop, the South China Sea International Conference was first convened in 2009, with the aim to promote such unity. For 17 years, the South China Sea Conference has brought top experts from around the world to one table. Here, they share ideas on how to keep peace and stability in the South China Sea. In 2024, the 16th South China Sea International Conference theme, Navigating Narratives, Nurturing Norms, was successfully organized. The conference witnessed the presence of more than 300 delegates attending in person, 250 delegates via online platform, 50 speakers from nearly 23 countries, 100 delegates from foreign representative agencies in the nation. On 3 to the 4th of November, 2025, the 17th South China Sea Conference in Da Nang will continue its mission to navigate complex narratives and reinforce international norms. Session 1. A Reality of Unstable Sea. Session 2. Great Powers' Strategic Unambiguities. Session 3. The Uninterruption of Maritime Technopolitics. Session 4. ASEAN at the Helm. Session 5. UNCLOS as Anchor of Maritime Stability. Session 6. Youth Power, Overcoming Ambiguity, Strengthening Unity. For the first time, the 17th South China Sea International Conference will feature the first ever Ambassador Lounge session, the first ever Southeast Asia-South Pacific Dialogue, and the first ever side event conference titled Science and Technology Cooperation, a driving force for sustainable blue ocean development. From science to diplomacy, from policy to technology, unity is our compass, guiding us through unpredictable tides, and steering us toward a shared, peaceful future. Because unity is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the courage to face it together. It is the belief that dialogue is stronger than division, and that cooperation outlasts conflict. Together, we sail toward a future built on peace, partnership, and purpose.
Distinguished participants, we now begin our first session of the day, A Reality of Unstable Sea. This panel takes a close look at evolving realities in the South China Sea development over the past year. We are honored to have His Excellency Ambassador Đặng Đình Quý, former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam, as the moderator of this session. Ambassador Gui, the floor is yours. May I kindly invite all the speakers come to the stage. Dr. Bat Strading, Dr. Inan Bao, Comrade J. Tirila, Mr. Ray Powell, and Dr. Đỗ Thanh Hải.
Good morning, everyone. Let me first thank the organizer for inviting me to be moderator in very first section of our conference today. We have 5 presenters. Dr. Beck starting from La Trobe University, Australia. And we have Dr. Jinan Bao from Huayong Centers for Maritime Cooperation and Ocean Governance, China. And we have Commodores J. Terela, Philippine Coast Guard spokesman, West Philippine Sea Concern, the Philippines. And we have Mr. Ray Powell, founder and directors of Sea Light, Stanford University of the United States. And then last, we have Dr. Đỗ Thanh Hải from somewhere, I don't know. So I would like to remind all speakers we have about 10 minutes each, so we can have more time for questions and answers. I think we're comment, and I think that in the first section always very, very, very vivid and a lot of questions. Okay, so now I give the floor to Dr. Beck starting. Your 10 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Dr. Cern and the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam for this invitation. I'm really honoured to be on this panel for this first session, which is such an important and interesting topic. And I'll begin by addressing a slightly reworded question for today's session. How are contested strategic narratives about the South China Sea undermining peace and stability, and what can we do about it? So we know that strategic competition among great powers does not unfold solely through military maneuvers or economic influence. It is playing out in an increasingly complex and contested international information ecosystem. Through stories, images, maps, and language, states shape perceptions of legitimacy, who governs what, who sets the rules, and whose actions are seen as lawful or destabilising. In East Asia's maritime domain, this contest has created an informational grey zone, a space where truth and fiction blur, legitimacy is disputed, and information itself becomes a political weapon to influence perceptions and to undermine international maritime order. This is truly a contest over reality, reflecting the name of the panel session. So my central argument today is that smaller, middle, and regional powers across the Indo-Pacific, as well as extra-regional partners such as those in Europe and Canada, need to develop more collective and coordinated public diplomacy approaches to defending an UNCLOS-centred maritime order and the principles of universality that sustain it. The South China Sea offers an example of how this informational contest unfolds. Here we see competing legal narratives frame who is acting legally and who is acting aggressively, what is often described as lawfare, or the quasi-legal justifications or selective interpretations of UNCLOS. We all can see the use of normative territorialisation through the naming of features, through the use of maps, through visually normalising maritime claims. These sorts of normative territorialisation strategies seek to narratively perform sovereignty and control over maritime space. We've also seen recently the use of greenwashing narratives, such as declaring marine nature reserves over contested areas in the South China Sea and weaponising concerns around the environment of maritime domains to justify continued presence and authority. Perhaps more worryingly, we are increasingly seeing the use of cloned websites, fake social media accounts and coordinated campaigns, information campaigns, including Russian-inspired operations such as doppelganger campaigns that distort perceptions and manufacture legitimacy. These information strategies can mirror the language, concepts and imagery of other states, constructing alternate realities that blur fact and fiction and deliberately, if you'll excuse the pun, muddy the waters. Influence in this domain depends less on truth than on the image of plausibility, with information operations including doppelganger techniques that mirror authentic online assets using plausible but false stories, fabricated identities and astroturfed support to blur fact and fiction, reshape audiences' sense of reality and manipulate perceptions of legitimacy. So these sorts of mirror worlds or alternate realities can make disinformation harder to detect because they appear credible and familiar. In this way, strategic narratives become instruments of power, allowing states and associated actors to assert preferred visions of truth. Information campaigns like these are inherently unstable. And of course, this contest is not only fought with words. The presence of naval and coast guard vessels, which we'll hear more about in the panel later, is also a form of communication, signalling occupation intent and denial of others' rights to space. So for smaller and middle and regional powers, this informational grey zone poses serious challenges. So what can these states do in response in order to support an UNCLOS-centred maritime order? They can act collectively and in a more coordinated fashion, developing shared strategies for international public diplomacy that defend both the legitimacy and the universality of UNCLOS. This could include by coordinating strategic narratives, aligning messages around the importance of UNCLOS and the rules-based order. Research shows that facts alone do not always change minds. Narratives and stories are often much more persuasive. So using strategic narratives as a storytelling mechanism to defend and support the importance of UNCLOS, not just for states, but for the livelihoods of people. Second, sharing information, exchanging approaches to dealing with false narratives, AI-generated content and deepfakes, while being conscious that the term disinformation can be weaponised for political ends. We can utilise global expertise in dealing with these informational issues. Third, building regional expert networks that connect academics, journalists and officials to promote credible, evidence-based narratives. One example at the moment is the Southeast Asian Maritime Media Visits Program, which is funded by the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and led by our Blue Security team at La Trobe Asia, which links maritime journalists with legal and political communication experts and has also developed a maritime media reporting best practice toolkit, which is designed to support credible journalism on the topics to do with maritime security in our region. So the focus on our discussions in that program has not just been, has been on actually the importance of explaining why UNCLOS matters, not just for states, as I said before, but for individuals and for livelihoods. We can also look to developing joint transparency initiatives, but also amplifying existing transparency initiatives, such as that is being undertaken by the Philippines. Number 5, we can think about using track 1.5 and track 2 mechanisms, perhaps even in a trilateral sense, to talk about strategic narratives. I would love to see an Australia, Vietnam and Philippines 1.5 track dialogue, for example, so we can start to see more coordinated messaging. Finally, some of my work on, comparative work on how smaller states have won maritime disputes against bigger powers has demonstrated the need to combine legal statecraft with public diplomacy. Maritime disputes are won not only in the court of law, but in the court of public opinion. Integrated legal and communication strategies are therefore essential when thinking about using courts or arbitration for maritime dispute resolution. So just to conclude, the informational grey zone is not just about disinformation, it is a contest over legitimacy and order. By working together through collective international public diplomacy approaches, states can defend the integrity of international law, reinforce the universality of UNCLOS, and ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains a region governed by principles and not by exceptions. And finally, as we think about interconnecting theatres, it's worth remembering UNCLOS is the global constitution for the oceans. If it is weakened in one region, its universality is diminished. So what happens in the South China Sea is not a local issue, it matters profoundly for global maritime order. Thank you.
Thank you back very much for keeping your time, 10 minutes sharp. Okay. And thank you for providing us your analysis on the actions of all players inside and outside the region, especially the powers. And also thank you for your 6 suggestions. I think that we can discuss further on this kind of suggestion on the later section on that. We come back later on. So next I would like to invite Dr. Yan Bao from Wayang Centers, China. Dr. Bao, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Jim. Thank you for inviting me to join this session. It's my great honor to express some of my thoughts on the escalating tension between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea. I will address the necessity to break the deadlock in South China Sea. Then I will propose the newly created International Organization for Mediation, IOMED, as an innovative mechanism to solve certain types of South China Sea disputes. And then I will examine the feasibility. We know that currently there are several types of maritime disputes in the South China Sea. We witness a Coast Guard standoff at South Scarborough Shore, Second Thomas Shore, and Sabina Shore, and other parts of maritime zones in the South China Sea on a regular basis. We also have maritime environmental protection disputes. There are some fishery disputes among South China Sea claimants, and to some extent, some disputes over freedom of navigation and freedom of overflight, especially between China and the US. So to use one word to describe the current situation in the South China Sea, I will use turbulent. It's anything but peaceful, anything but stable. That's call for us to do something to stop this thing from happening. The traditional Chinese methods, the Chinese preference to solve disputes is negotiation. But sometimes negotiation will get stuck. For our Filipino friends, they opt to use arbitration. We witnessed the 2013 to 2016 the South China Sea Arbitration Award. But in the sense of solving dispute, the South China Sea Arbitration Award failed miserably. Our Filipino friends may also choose adjudication in the future. But we need to remember, according to Article 33 of the United Nations Charter, there are some middle ground diplomatic methods with limited with limited involvement of third parties such as mediation, inquiry, and conciliation. So today I will introduce the newly created mechanism initiated by China, which is the IOMAT. The IOMAT is an international organization created by the Convention on the Establishment of the IOMAT, which was signed by 33 states in this May. And the convention itself has entered into force in late August. And it became fully functional just 2 weeks ago in Hong Kong. And up to this point, there are actually 38 signatories because Morocco has just signed the convention, joined the IOMAT just 4 days ago. And we can see that there are 8 parties, including China, has already ratified the convention, and 4 out of the 11 ASEAN countries, namely Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, and Myanmar, had already joined the IOMAT. So according to Article 2 of the IOMAT Convention, it's a mechanism like mediation and conciliation. The parties attempt to reach a mutually acceptable and amicable settlement of their disputes on a voluntary basis with the assistance of a third parties. So I will introduce some key features of IOMAT mechanism. First, it's emphasized on the consent from the parties. According to Articles 24 and 25 of the Convention, IOMAT only accepts cases upon unanimous consent of all parties. And the consent to mediation may be withdrawn by a party unilaterally at any time during the mediation procedure. The second is that it provides several safe valves to control the mediation process. According to Article 33 and 34 of the Convention, the confidentiality for all information and documents, and the statements made cannot be invoked for further procedure. Finally, regarding the binding force, it's actually binding on all parties. Any settlement agreement duly concluded between parties binding upon them and shall be performed in good faith. Now I will examine the feasibility of using this mechanism. It's actually fully compatible with the UNCLOS because Article 284 of the UNCLOS allow our parties to choose their methods. One of them is conciliation. So IOMAT mechanism can be regarded as one kind of conciliation procedure. And can China use it? Of course it can. According to Article 25, actually the convention permits any party to make a declaration to exclude certain kinds of disputes from using this mechanism. It's just like the Article 298 of the UNCLOS. But when China ratified the convention on the 28th of June, it actually only excluded those disputes under the World Trade Organization from the IOMAT, which means territorial disputes, maritime delimitation, and any kind of disputes involving the interpretation and application of the UNCLOS can still be used. And will China use it? I think it depends on the different types of disputes. And can Vietnam and the Philippines use it? We know that Vietnam and the Philippines have not joined the IOMAT, but according to Article 25, even though they are not parties to the convention, they can still use it as long as they wish to submit the case, the dispute, to use the IOMAT mechanism. And will Vietnam and the Philippines use it? It also depends on different scenarios and disputes. So if you ask me the outlook, whether this mechanism can actually work, whether China and the Philippines or China and Vietnam or other South China Sea claimants will use it in the future, well, I cannot tell you in this point. But I'm an optimist. I remember the theme song of the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, which reads, "Hand in hand across the land, we can make this world a better place in which to live in. Hand in hand we can start to understand, breaking down the walls that come between us for all time." So it's up to you and me, young scholars, young leaders, government officials, to help contribute to build the South China Sea into a sea of peace, sea of friendship, and sea of cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bao, very much for sharing your analysis on IOMAT. And we can discuss further on the effectiveness and applicability of IOMAT to the dispute on South China Sea later on. So next, I would like to invite Commodore Tariela from the Philippines. Commodore, you have 10 minutes, please.
First of all, I would like to thank DAV for inviting me, Dr. Hongsun for inviting me, and a pleasant morning to everyone. For over a decade, maritime security scholars have argued that Southeast Asian nations are perpetually ensnared in the crossfire of great power rivalry between the United States and the People's Republic of China. Yet, this framing overlooks a more pressing reality. The true strategic bind these countries face daily is not that rivalry itself, but a stark choice whether they're going to confront or ignore Beijing's unlawful and aggressive actions across the South China Sea. Historically, the path of least resistance has been to avert our gaze, driven by a national interest defined primarily by economic growth, trade, and investment. We have justified that ignoring by embracing our identity as a peace-loving nation where confrontation ranks low among our priorities. In hindsight, however, we have drifted from our foundational ethos as a sovereign, sensitive region, one that has long prized principle approach over the seduction of lucrative deals, refusing to yield on violations of our sovereign rights in the South China Sea for the sake of short-term economic gains. Under President Ferdinand Marcos, the Philippines has charted a different course to fulfill his pledge of not surrendering a single square inch of our territory to any foreign power. He has pursued an innovative strategy, one that avoids aggressive response to China's excessive claims while steadfastly upholding our rights. Rather than ignoring the provocation or retaliating in kind, we have chosen to publicize them. This gave rise to the Philippines Transparency Initiative in the West Philippine Sea. Over the past 2 years, the Philippine government has taken the lead in shining a light on China's gray zone activities. What we once referred to as gray zone tactics are now viewed in the Philippines as overtly illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions that must be brought to the attention of both the Filipino people and the international community. Moreover, our approach has proven 4 compelling reasons why transparency must remain to be our cornerstone. First, ignoring blatant violation of international law fosters a culture of impunity, emboldening perpetrators to view the rules as abstract and unenforceable. Second, our transparency efforts are not provocations. Through the proper lens, the aggressors are the true instigators, while those exposing unlawful behavior are the victims reclaiming their voice. Third, bullying by more powerful states against smaller ones will persist unchecked if endured in silence. But if the global community unites in calling out the belligerent actor with tangible and collective measures, deterrence becomes not just probable, but highly possible. Finally, transparency is not about provocation. It is about alerting the international community to the jeopardy facing the rules-based order. Left unchallenged, daily encroachments by bullies like the People's Republic of China could erode the peace we take for granted, eroding even smaller nations' faith in international law as a great equalizer among states large and small. The imperative of factual unvarnished narratives in the South China Sea has never been greater. The People's Republic of China excels at propagating and amplifying distortions. Beijing has masterfully counters accusation of international law violations by reframing its actions as routine maritime law enforcement. When Southeast Asian nations decry encroachment into their exclusive economic zone, China retorts it is their Coast Guard vessel merely lawfully driving away intruders. Even more audaciously, after reports of environmental destruction, they even declared to plan to establish natural reserves, ironically. In 2025 alone, we have witnessed the Chinese Coast Guard deploying water cannon against the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Philippine Coast Guard. This shows how careless they violate the international regulations for preventing collisions at sea, in which they are also a party. The next video captures 110 Chinese maritime militia swarming the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. The following video shows Filipino fishermen in the West Philippine Sea being harassed by China Coast Guard while receiving subsidies from our own government. These videos also show how blatantly the People's Republic of China disrespects the exclusive economic zone of our country, dispatching marine scientific research that falls within our own maritime jurisdiction. This video also shows how China breached aviation safety protocols by dangerously approaching Coast Guard aircraft on multiple occasions. To the People's Republic of China, these are merely legitimate, professional, and resolute assertion of its claim against nation daring to exercise sovereign rights in their own exclusive economic zone, as they claim. This brings us to the core question: is this unstable stability sustainable? And what might push us past the threshold? I am confident that the Philippines can continue to professionally withstand the People's Republic of China's illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive tactics in the years ahead without making our presence in the West Philippine Sea as the flashpoint. Likewise, neighbors from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia will persist in deploying White House, civilian, and Coast Guard vessels to manage tensions without escalation or concession, all while anchoring their positions in international law. Currently, we are witnessing a notable rise in the visibility and operations of these Coast Guard agencies across Southeast Asia. This heightened presence is particularly significant given the ongoing disputes involving maritime jurisdiction and rights over resources. For us in Southeast Asia, to include Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, the international principles that guide Coast Guard operations emphasize the importance of using our white-hulled vessels as a means of maintaining peace and stability. Our collective approach is rooted in a desire to avoid provoking China. However, we are still fighting to recognize that no nation in the region is eager to escalate tensions further. Moreover, it is important for Southeast Asian region to advocate for the resolution of the South China Sea conflict through law enforcement rather than military engagement. We believe that addressing these issues through diplomatic and legal channels is essential for fostering a long-term stability and cooperation among nations. The true peril lies elsewhere, not among Southeast Asian countries. When China Coast Guard and maritime militia continue operating like modern-day pirates, brazenly disregarding they themselves have signed, such as COLREGs, SOLAS, and even UNCLOS, above all, miscalculation and outright instability looms largest if the People's Liberation Army Navy warship persists in their seamanship lapses, risking collision even with their own China Coast Guard vessel. In such a volatile theater, drawn by a belligerent nation like the People's Republic of China, the line between restraint and catastrophe is perilously thin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Commodore, for sharing your assessment. I mean that evidence-based assessment of South China Sea, and also sharing your position and the policy of the Philippine government on the South China Sea recently. And my next speakers, I would like to invite Ray Power. Yeah.
Well, good morning. Xin chào các bạn. My name is Ray. I come from California, and I operate a small nonprofit organization called Sea Light that essentially promotes independent maritime transparency. For anyone who might be here from the China Media Group or Global Times, of course you can say what you like, and you do. I think the way I would like to sort of frame my remarks is understanding that when I first began looking at the South China Sea as a professional problem, as a very young military person looking at the South China Sea actually from the Vietnamese perspective, it was really all about features. Who had presence on which reef? I mean, I honestly began my journey as a military professional right about the same time as the 1988 battle at Johnson South Reef, where, as you may recall, about 64 Vietnamese were killed. But that was really the last time, of course, that bullets were shot and blood was shed in that way. And since then, we've seen an evolution in Chinese tactics toward this gray zone effort. But really understanding that this is part of a long-term campaign. This picture you see here was the result of some data that we shared with the New York Times in 2023 in an article they called Fleets of Force that just sort of demonstrated what their, the extent of China's Coast Guard patrols in 2023. This has obviously expanded since then. But what it shows is that we've gone from a dispute over features to a dispute over water, like who controls the water. And that's new, actually, in the South China Sea, relatively speaking. And I want to get into why, but mostly it has to do with it has been an increase in Chinese capacity. As their capacity has grown, so has their ambition to control actually the water in the South China Sea. And so as an example of this, we see this situation around Scarborough Shoal, which actually on my way here from Manila, I was able to fly directly past and take a nice little cell phone photo of it outside my window. But you can see that in a 12-month period, say from May 2023 to April 2024, the Chinese cordon around Scarborough Shoal was actually fairly small, and you can see at the bottom of that same chart, you can see the Philippines was still able to go right up to the edge of Scarborough Shoal and conduct their patrols, and their fishermen were still able to get in and out of Scarborough Shoal with some success. But beginning in that May of 2024, you saw a dramatic change. And China began to build what we have referred to as an exclusion zone around Scarborough Shoal, prohibiting Philippine Coast Guard, Philippine fisheries, and even Philippine fishermen from getting within about 30 nautical miles of Scarborough Shoal. So there has been a dramatic change in the status quo around Scarborough Shoal, forced by the fact that China has essentially surged capacity in that direction. There is a screen of China Coast Guard and maritime militia ships preventing approaching the shoal. And when you think about what happened on August 11th with the collision between those two ships, this actually, the proximate cause was one of the Philippine Coast Guard ships was within this exclusion zone, which appeared to draw out the Chinese destroyer in a very, very harrowing experience. We have been at Sea Light trying to begin to reframe our thinking about the gray zone and trying to come up with a lexicon to understand what China's rapidly evolving tactics are in the gray zone, understanding that we need to actually begin to think as nations about having strategies that are specific to the gray zone. We have to stop thinking in our traditional civil versus military, peace versus war, legal versus illegal frameworks, because China is not approaching that this way at all. And so we're going to have to start thinking in interagency fashion, in sort of cross-disciplinary factions, so that we can correctly understand what China is doing. For example, when the China Coast Guard creates a cordon around Scarborough Shoal, it is not acting simply as a law enforcement mechanism, but together with a maritime militia is acting as a paramilitary force. Well, very few countries represented here have paramilitaries, but China has essentially succeeded in creating a vast maritime control expansion through the use of the paramilitary. Who is strategizing for counter-paramilitary operations? That's the way we have to start thinking. And we also have to remember that China also has, as a very integral part of their gray zone strategy, a strategy of political warfare. So there is this, as I think Beck talked about, this information operations regime intended to change our thinking, right? The idea is resistance is futile. Why are you resisting what is inevitable in China's dominion? It is better to just make a peace with it and yield some of your sovereignty. And I'm sorry, Dr. Bao, but even join our little IOMET group, and we can resolve the problems this way when we've already achieved overmatch, when we've already changed the facts on the water in a way that benefits and gives us all the leverage. So understanding how political warfare integrates with gray zone warfare is key to beginning to come up with some kind of a counter strategy. My friend Jay talked about transparency. Sea Light has called this assertive transparency. The government of the Philippines doesn't like that term, but that's fine. But I think the way to understand it is it's more than just about making out China to look like the bad guy, right? Yes, there is a reputational cost angle to it. You are trying to make a gray zone aggressor pay the reputational cost for aggression, but there's also a resilience building piece of this. The Philippines, since they have adopted this tactic, because they're in a democracy, have been able to now reframe their entire national defense strategy to focus on archipelagic defense, something that was not true before all of this started, actually being able to focus both effort and resources and brain power toward resolving what is their major national security problem. And they've also been able to build a tremendous amount of international support. We just saw the announcement of a new Task Force Philippines with the United States. We just saw the announcement of a new visiting forces agreement with Canada. This is all part of a long pattern of the Philippines reframing itself and integrating itself into a larger network of partners and allies. All of that was built because before you can do any of that, you have to build a consensus that it's necessary, especially in a democracy. If you want to spend money on the Coast Guard, you have to convince your people that it's worth it for maybe that you're not going to spend quite as much money on the social services or infrastructure or whatever that you might want to, because this is an imperative, and it comes beginning with showing them through transparency. Our role as an independent actor in this has been to sort of expose those things from an outside perspective. So it's very difficult for governments to release information. The Philippines has actually been the exception to the rule in that sense. But we began in early 2023 to begin to just simply show the world what we saw happening. And I can't help but remark on this picture in the middle. I live tweeted this event, which took place over a month in May of 2023, in which a Chinese survey vessel, surrounded by Coast Guard and maritime militia, spent a month drawing the Chinese character for China, Zhong, as in Zhongguo, right off the coast of Vietnam, which was astonishing and really pretty amazing. And because I didn't speak Mandarin, I didn't recognize it for quite a long time. But this shows how information operations, narrative warfare, political warfare are such an integral part of China's gray zone strategy. And despite the fact that they're focused on the Philippines right now, they have not forgotten about the rest of their claims. So that's me. I'm Ray. I have a nonprofit. I also have a podcast, if you would like to look, that I do with my friend Jim Caruso. So if you're interested in the Indo-Pacific, please feel free to look us up. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ray, very much for providing us a very comprehensive pictures and take us through a history course of development of the dispute in South China Sea since 1974 until very recently. And I very much thank you for the Sea Line initiative. It's a kind of, additional method for watching South China Sea, side by side with the maritime transparent initiatives that long time organized by George Polling in the CSIS. I think it's good. Yeah, thank you very much. And my last speaker is Dr. Hai from the DAV. Yeah. Hai, your 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Very good morning. And it's really a privilege for me to be here today. And I would like to thank the organizers for that kind of honor. And I would like to state at the beginning that the presentation is my own views and opinions. It does not necessarily reflect those of my institutions and my government. And it's very important that my presentation will do the review of what happening over the last year, because usually the traditions, that kind of conference that we overview, we did the review of what happened year on. So I want to start my presentation. I don't have a postcard, but what I have, that is, yeah, that's it, not, okay, it's good. So I want to start my presentation by quoting from the Alexis Tocqueville during the French Revolution. So that never was any such event stemming from factors so far in the past, so inevitable, and yet so completely unseen. Definitely what we've seen today is not out of sudden, and we believe that it's a slow burn of history, of mistrust, and of maritime ambition that converging into crisis, foretold, but yet still unfolding. So we look into that, and I try to put in perspective, because if you don't want to see that one-off event, we put it into the framework to see where we are standing. So I use a conflict escalation framework, would start, some level of the conflict that could be happen. So we start from stable cooperation to manage competition, gray zone contest, militarized standoff, kinetic classes, and of course the final stage is the open armed conflict that we never want to see what happened in our region. So what we set down, I set out the framework and also the criteria, and of course the implication for each every level to understand, so that we have a roadmap and we know where we is there. So with that, of course, it's very easy. It's not very special because it's everywhere, but it's still very useful for us to track what we are there. I mean, from the stable cooperation to manage competition when we have the diplomats, the protests, close encounters, but not really tensions in the way that hotline can be used. Until we then have the militarized standoff. Of course, many people talk about gray zone contestation, that already there, so I don't talk about. But of course, last two level 5, level 6, we never want to happen. That is localized armed conflicts. I will maybe want to open armed conflict that would involve the great power. So from that, I want to review over the last year. Of course, we've seen the continued gray zone in the area. Of course, as mentioned in Ray and also Beck, and of course, Commodore Terriala, that we did see the surge in the incidents. Of course, the frequent use of water cannons, ramming, side whipping, swamming. Of course, now we see more and more blockage maneuvers. So we see about 10 incidents this year so far between China and Philippines, so that is alarming. We, of course, see the sustained presence of naval assets, the Coast Guard, maritime militia, and of course, survey vessels to assert claims and assert control. We still see the flow of the diplomatic protests, the accusation and blame each other, while the COC negotiation is still dragging on. Of course, legal jockeying in the way that there's a hardened sovereignty claims, the environmental case, the non-verbal designations, and of course the reiterations of arbitral awards. But we do see this year is more than gray zone. We're sliding into the red zone in the way that we do see the presence of the hard military access, especially warship and fighter jets in a very competitive in maneuvering. And of course, there are very close maneuvering between the Chinese and Philippine aircraft. We see competitive drills and exercises. Of course, we see the escalations of physical clashes, and which I think that also mentioned the incident between the Coast Guard and warship that could go to letalities, the injuries among the sailors. Of course, it's important that if we track the military buildup in the region, we see the vast concentration of military access, especially the deployments of the new missiles, Nemesis in the system, the opening more bases, and definitely we also see the more defense diplomacy and alliance posturing. What we observe that there are also the surge in the reiterations of deterrence in many ways. We still see now the lawfare fused with the power projection. And also there are more concerns about the linkage between the South China Sea, the East China Sea, and the Taiwan Strait, when the Japanese come with the idea of one theaters, and that really, they see the connectedness between the different type of region we are facing. So there are the transition from my observation, right, from the gray zone, that level 3, to militarized standoff, level 4, with the greater concentration, the greater military buildup in the region. Of course, when the people stock more arms, we have the reason to worry about what happened next. Of course, what my question is that whether we are sleepwalking into wars, and that is the question. Of course, when we look into that, my studies show that there are some drivers behind. There are, of course, the distrust about rules, the frustrations against diplomacy, because dragging on negotiation on the COC. We see the resort to military power at the last resort, self-help, because we see Philippines invest heavily into armament, of course, with the support of the allies and partners. There is a natural operations of the security dilemma when we see that the increase in arms of one country for the defense, but it can be perceived as an offensive intent. So that security dilemma put us on the natural path into the cycle and spiral of escalation. Of course, alliance politics jump in as short-term cue, and of course, they also intend to signal resolve and deterrence. And we see the statement of Secretary of Defense Hexet, and many times he talked about the shoring up the deterrence in the region together with the deployment of military access. Of course, we also see there's a quick build-up in terms of naval capability on the part of China. That, of course, with the small and medium size, we worry. Because if the trend continues, the people put more resources into military modernizations, other people have to do the same, or you are in the unfavorable conditions. With that, I'm sure that we know that the stakes are very high. We see already the increase in the premium of the shipping to the region. We also know that we have 3 to 5 billion of trade go to the region every year. So any kind of disruption into the trade flow, into the supply chain disruption, that we have the spin-over effect to every economies in the region that could consider as the engine for the global economic growth. We'll see more fishing industry collapse. Of course, the energy security is in danger. And of course, finally, we don't want to see any kind of armed conflict happen in the region that would overturn everything that we built for decades. On that note, I come up with some proposed solution and action. Of course, it's also my pure research and study. And I think that we have to take time to think innovatively and also creatively about what we do. That may be the need to freeze the activities and distance the forces, because the recent coalition, the recent rammings, that is really dangerous, that already resulted in casualties. We may need the regional rules of engagement for our Coast Guard, because without the rules of engagement, that kind of activity and that kind of confrontation would drag on. And we need maybe somehow, this is a very illegal idea, we should put the protection zones out of maritime features so that we make sure that no status quo change would be happen. We need the confidence building through the environmental and scientific collaboration. A lot of talks, but not many have done so. We may need to renew commitment. Of course, we hope that there are finalizations of COC next year. Hope that under the Philippine chairmanship, we are looking forward to that. There should be the news about the strategic insurance, because without the big world power will come confrontation with each other. That would be a disaster for the region. And on the final note, we need to balance between deterrence and dialogue. So without the capability to defend, we are in the weak position and we're inviting a secession and an invasion. But without dialogue, we will fall in the trap of security dilemma. And we're already there. And although we need to stop it. And that with note, I would like to end in saying that the South China Sea is facing a make and break time that requires both innovation and audacity. With that, thank you for their attention.
Thank you very much, and you make me scary by saying that it make or break time now. Okay, and thank you for sharing the conflict escalation framework and how it applies to the South China Sea. That we have heard 5 presenters. They look at South China Sea recent development in the last 12 months from the old perspective. And each presenter provides one part of the picture. And the 5 parts of the picture make it complete of the recent development in the last 12 months. So now floor is open, and I would remind all the participants to have comment, input, or make your question clear, and to each participant, each presenter, 2 minutes only. Okay, 2 minutes each. We have participants on the floor and then participants online also. So now I would like to invite the gentleman on the second row from the last first. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Jan Asmussen, University of Kiel, Germany, and German Center of Excellence at the Thammasat University in Bangkok. My question goes to Commodore Tariella and Dr. Dotan Hai. I just heard in the last presentation that joint patrols are something as a good sign of cooperation and de-escalation. Given the situation in the South China Sea, I would like to ask, is there any thought of joint patrols by the Vietnamese and the Philippines Coast Guards in order to assure freedom of navigation in the South China Sea? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to take 3 participants at a time. Okay, the lady at the second row.
Well, okay, my question will be like, I hear the whole session and you mentioned lots of the conflicts and confrontations in the South China Sea, but as far as concerned, both of the parties try their best to manage the conflicts of the sea. For example, in the second shore, China and the Philippines made their best to reach a provisional arrangement for humanitarian supply and manage the conflict successfully. So my question would be go to Jay, that we all know that the Philippines will going to be the president of ASEAN next year. So does the Philippines have any plan or some proposals to promote the regional states to manage the conflicts and to promote the final conclusion of the COC? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right. Would you identify yourself first? Okay, that's fine. Right, that's fine. Right. The gentleman over there, they're on my left, they're the second row from the back.
Yes, my name is Simon Song from Taiwan. My question goes to Jay. In 2013, there's a fishery dispute between Taiwan and the Philippines. The result is one Taiwanese fisherman lost his life, and that's terrible. But luckily, Taiwan and the Philippines turned this turned this crisis into an opportunity by negotiating a fishermen, law enforcement agreement. So in this agreement, both sides agreed not to use excessive force, not to resort in any violence. And for the last 10 years, both countries, works quite well. We don't have any fishery disputes anymore. So I would like to hear your comment on this example. Maybe we can use this model as a very good case for the peaceful settlement of disputes in the South China Sea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jay, you are very demanding. You can take the floor first. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for all the very interesting questions. For the first question, Professor, you were asking about joint Coast Guard patrol between the Philippine Coast Guard and Vietnam. For the information of everyone, and I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs can also support me on this, we have an existing maritime security cooperation with Vietnam Coast Guard to include intelligence and information sharing. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, the Philippine Coast Guard vessel visited Vietnam as a sign of goodwill, and they also allowed the Coast Guard vessel here to be accommodated. And then a few weeks ago, the Vietnam Coast Guard in return also went to Visayas area. We even had search and rescue exercise, maritime pollution exercise. It shows that between the Vietnam and the Philippine Coast Guard, we have a very robust partnership and cooperation with regard to maritime security and even maritime safety. But with your question as to will there be a joint patrol together with this Coast Guard organizations? I cannot speak for Vietnam, but perhaps the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can shed light on this. But for the Philippines, we are always welcoming with any Southeast Asian countries to support this kind of initiative that would highlight the fact that we are cooperating with each other, that we are not aggressive with one another, and that we are allowing negotiation and peaceful reconciliation for any differences that we have. For the second question, are there any ways that the Philippines is finding to resolve the dispute with the People's Republic of China or with any Southeast Asian country claimant states? Obviously, the Philippines has been a supporter of the Code of Conduct. In so many occasions, the Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs have highlighted the fact that the Philippine government under President Marcos has been supportive of the realization of the Code of Conduct, and hopefully it will be realized next year as we chair the next ASEAN Summit meeting. Besides from the Code of Conduct as something that we really envision to happen, we also have what we call the bilateral consultative meeting with the Chinese government. Every quarterly, we sit on one table. Sometimes they host it, sometimes it's hosted by the Philippines. We talk about different issues, even the South China Sea concern. For the third concern, Your Excellency, about the experience that the Philippines and Taiwan had after the 2013 incident in Balintang Channel. It is true that it is an experience worth sharing with the members of the international community, because after that incident, we now have a very positive engagement in addressing fisheries for the Taiwanese and also for the Filipinos who would be suspectedly crossing the boundaries of each other. We don't make use of unnecessary force anymore, and as I agree with you, this is something worth looking into by other countries who also have issues with maritime border for fishery activities. Thank you.
Hi, your turn again.
I have very important questions regarding to the Coast Guard thing with Jay, and I share her last about his assessment. I want to ask that we also have a very successful model of the joint patrol in the Gap of Tonkin, when Vietnam and Chinese Coast Guard patrol to make sure that the good and excellent implementations of the Gap of the Tonkin delimitation agreement and also the fishery. So I would argue that the joint patrol only work when we have a clearly delimited boundary, so that would have a lot with the implementations of that agreement. In that, of course, we have a lot of cooperation with the Philippines, and of course, we need to work together to resolve our dispute as fast as possible. So that with that, I think that the follow-up with the cooperation of Coast Guard in the joint patrol, it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hai. And I would like to remind you that this year, 2025, that we have 25th anniversaries of the signing of the agreement between Vietnam and China on the delimitation of the Gulf of Tonkin, 25 years now. And in this conference, we are very happy to have someone who take part in the negotiation and the limitation. They are sitting there. Still, we are watching us. Okay. All right. So I see the hand of the man in the second row. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. This is Huang from South China Sea Institute. My question is to Jay and Ray, and also Beck, if possible.
Jay and Ray and Beck, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would like to play a little bit of a devil advocate here. So we've heard a lot about the value of the transparency campaign, of what benefits it brings, but I was just wondering if from the Philippines point of view, Jay, do you see any limits to that transparency campaign, especially when, as far as I'm concerned, there are certain cases where the Philippines choose to publicize certain informations and withhold certain part of the information that only comes out later. Also, that question is to Beck. And then the second part to Ray specifically, so your work is based mostly on open source commercial data, right, and satellite images. I was wondering if, how do you maintain the objectivity and the neutrality of the data, especially when it comes to gray zone monitoring, especially when, AI tools have been incorporated into some of the platforms, and we know that AIs are human trained, and there can be certain inherent bias that is attached to how you train your AI model to spot certain patterns and identify whether they are gray zone patterns or not. So how do you, maintain the neutrality and objectivity of such data? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Later on. Okay. Here, you. Yeah. The gentleman in the second row. Yeah.
Thank you, Ambassador. My name is Himret Sumay, Executive Director of the Cambodian Center for Regional Study. I have one question to Dr. Hai of the EAB. Your presentation very interesting, and thank you very much for your comment. I would like to ask your view, especially with regarding the issue of security dilemma that you eloquently raised about. Would you foresee any possible regional binding regional or international agreement, like a set of regional and international agreement that govern the code of conduct in the South China Sea? Maybe whether you see that it's possible within maybe Southeast Asian state first, and then it broaden, the certain like TAC type, the Trilateral Amity and Cooperation, but with several aspects that govern the code of conduct in the South China Sea, so that the risk of escalation and the issue and the norm and the principle that you mentioned were appropriately addressed in a binding agreement, so that the negotiation can eventually take more steps, so that to address the issue of security dilemma that you raised about. My second aspect to it, do you will see that in the future there will be a possibility of also international or regional mechanism to manage arm control, First of all, between member states in ASEAN, and then, broaden more to great power and regional power, and more like an international arrangement or some kind, international institution or some kind. So I would like to seek your comment on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next. Okay, I think that the lady over there, right, on the second row in the back, from the back.
Hi, my name is Mang Zheng. I'm a scholar from China, and I have a question for Mr. Tariella. So I understand that the Philippine government is currently working with the Chinese government to push for a bilateral Coast Guard cooperation MOU. And I wonder why now and why Coast Guard cooperations, and do you think that will be able to ease the tension over the South China Sea dispute between the two nations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we take the question in order. I think Beck first. Beck and Ray and Hai and Jay. Jay very demanding now. Okay.
Thank you for the important question on the transparency campaign and what my views are. I mean, I think there are different audiences that we're talking about here. And Jay mentioned this in his presentation, that, part of this is about domestic audiences. It's partly about resilience and ensuring that the Philippines can secure a budget for the Coast Guard, but for making the public understand why this is such an important issue. This isn't just an issue of high politics. This is something that affects the lives of people. And so when we think about the effectiveness of a transparency campaign, I would say that it needs to be measured on what the purpose is. And if the purpose is to tell a domestic public why these issues matter, then I think the transparency campaign is doing a very good job. The question, though, is if the audience is China and the purpose is trying to get China to change its behaviour, which I don't necessarily think that it is, that's a more problematic, that's a higher standard that you're trying to set for the transparency campaign. And so that's a little bit more, I think, ambitious. The third audience, of course, is the international audience. And Jay, you might be able to tell us a little bit more about this, but I would suggest that what's going on in the West Philippine Sea seems to be getting a lot more attention because of the campaign, and that can generate international support. So that is another audience and another way of measuring the effectiveness of a campaign. So I would agree that, of course, there are risks. When we're talking about information, it's really tricky because all political actors have their own strategic narratives and their own ideological viewpoints that they are trying to press. But I would say that more collective approaches might reduce the risk of retaliation on one actor. And so I think going back to the first opening session where we heard about needing to find some common ground despite differences, part of aligning strategic narratives is not about being entirely on the same page on everything, but finding points of commonality and really being able to talk to the domestic and the global public about the importance of UNCLOS.
So I'm going to answer more than just the question that was given to me, so my apologies for that. I want to very quickly talk about assertive transparency, and beginning with the fact that actually for the first 6 months of the Philippines' transparency project, China actually was deterred. We saw it disperse a lot of its vessel swarms as the Philippines went out and took pictures of a lot of these. And it seemed to, in the summer of 2023, change its approach and decide essentially to make an example of the Philippines. And so there was a brief period of time where I think there was some optimism that it might change China's behavior, and did for a short period of time. The other point I would make about that is, I think part of what the conclusion that China reached was that if it can isolate the Philippines and just make it clear to everyone else that this is a really bad idea, you don't want to make China angry by doing transparency, then that would be its best chance of success. I would say also that the other two pillars that I presented in our paper that we did on this in January of 2024, and I put up on my slide, national resilience and international support, have been pretty unqualified successes for the Philippines. And finally, I would say that transparency should be thought about not merely as a campaign, but as a tactic in a larger strategy. And I think that every country that has an interest in this space should be studying transparency as a tactic and integrate it into a larger gray zone strategy. On the question of the objectivity, I think it's a really good one. A lot of what comes down to objectivity is what data you decide to present. So for example, I've been asked before, why doesn't Sea Light report on all the Vietnamese fishing boats that appear in the Philippines exclusive economic zone? Well, frankly, in our evaluation of that, those are nuisances. Those are not existential threats. We just have so much, so much more in our estimation, more important things to spend our time and effort on. But we are in favor of maximum transparency. So, in the words of Chairman Mao, let 100 flowers bloom. We would like to see lots and lots of transparency. We believe that the more light there is in the gray zone, the less room there will be for gray zone actors. And finally, I have to play my traditional role as the fly in the code of conduct ointment. I really don't see any prospect that there will be any more progress on a code of conduct this year than there will be next year or last year or the year before that. I think that the issues are simply too intractable. The question of who enforces a code of conduct is one that no one has ever explained to me sufficiently, and I do think that we actually have better things we could spend our time doing.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. And who's next? Okay, Zay. Okay.
Thank you very much. Regarding the question as to what are the limits of transparency, as what Beck and Ray explained a while ago, I think for us to be able to understand what Transparency Initiative is, we must first have to know what are the objectives. Again, the first objective of the Transparency Initiative, when President Marcos approved that, was for the Filipino people to be aware of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. For over 2 years already, according to the most recent survey, 94% of Filipinos are aware of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea, and they support the Transparency Initiative of the Philippine government. If that would be our measuring stick to say that transparency is effective, then I guess we are effective and there is no limitation. But again, there is a second objective of the transparency effort, and that is for the international community to be also aware of what's happening in the South China Sea. You know, before we started the Transparency Initiative, a lot of like-minded states are really supportive and care and show concern about what's happening in the entire South China Sea. However, if you're going to look at the post on X of the ambassador of all those countries except the United States, China seems to be like Voldemort in Harry Potter. They are a country that cannot be named. But because of the Transparency Initiative of the Philippine government, starting 2023, all of the countries from European Union, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, are now calling out China. The embassy of blank is concerned about the aggression or the use of water cannon of the People's Republic of China against the Filipino fishing boats. And for me, that kind of confidence from the international community to call out the Chinese aggression is also a good thing. It's also another successful measuring stick to say the transparency is really working. But if you're going to ask me, how did it change China? I agree with Ray. During the first few months of the Transparency Initiative, we thought that reputational damage is really something that would compel China to adhere to the international law. It's very easy for us to disperse the swarming of Chinese maritime militia. All we just have to do is to bring a bunch of media personalities, fly over South China Sea, and then expose the swarming of the Chinese maritime militia. A few days after, they are gone. However, 2024 is entirely different. The Chinese became very aggressive despite of the transparency efforts. They used water cannon, they used deliberately ramming Coast Guard vessel, and they even use military-grade laser and without hesitation would ram and collide with any of the government vessels. So the question should be like, then why China still resisted the idea of adhering to the international law? I actually have 4 plausible explanations. One, because the Chinese government thinks they want to test the limit of the international community. They want to know how the G7 countries, despite of their 3 annual events, and they have already included South China Sea in their past statements, how would they react if ever China would elevate the level of aggression each time they harass the Coast Guard vessels? The second one is that, Xi Jinping really wants to flex his muscle. He doesn't want any of his Chinese national in mainland to think that his leadership is getting weaker because he is subjecting himself from the condemnation and criticism of the international community. So instead of, deliberately decreasing the level of aggression, he has to become more pretending to be strong man, trying to bully smaller countries. And then the third one is that he wants the Philippines to be an example for Southeast Asian countries. The transparency initiative for the Philippine government is already a headache for the Chinese Communist Party. Try to imagine if all the Southeast Asian countries will also be doing the same thing. And then the fourth most plausible reason is that Chinese government wants to break the Filipino spirit. They want to put an end on the transparency initiative for good. They don't want the international community to see all those blatant violation and aggressive action of the People's Republic of China against an ordinary Filipino fisherman. And for me, that's the limitation of the transparency initiative. It's because we haven't received yet a collective, tangible action to make sure the Chinese government will fall in line and adhere to the international law. And now, they are coming up with another proposal of IUMID. For the second question by the Chinese caller, how are we going to come up with joint Coast Guard, China-Philippine Coast Guard cooperation? The Joint Coast Guard Committee meeting was one of the first memorandum of understanding signed by the former President Duterte when he went to Beijing in 2016. And under the previous administration, there was a Joint Coast Guard Committee meeting wherein the China Coast Guard would host the meeting for the top leaders of the Philippine Coast Guard in Beijing. The following year, it will be held in Manila, and then the following year, it will be once again in mainland China. If you're asking me how it benefited our dispute resolution, our negotiation, it never did anything. It's just like, a meeting between the Coast Guard leaders talking about other issues, but not West Philippine Sea, but not the South China Sea. We talk about marine environmental protection, search and rescue, counter narcotics, piracy, armed robbery. The other side of the non-traditional security concern is only being discussed in that Coast Guard Committee meeting, but not the South China Sea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And hi, still inviting you something.
Thank you, Ramesh, for that very, very important questions. Of course, the idea of the COC among ASEAN countries had raised for a long time. But of course, there's also the suspicions about the utility of such agreement. Because among the Southeast Asian countries, we don't need the COC. Already, you can apply UNCLOS. And of course, Vietnam and Philippines, they can play volleyball in the Spratly. I think that is a way that the Southeast Asian country, they want to have a lot of framework to work with each other. Because the key important of the COC is try to work out a framework to work with China. Of course, we hopefully that also comply with UNCLOS, because the law of the South China Sea should not be different from the United Nations law of the sea, right? It's very important to note that. The second question is also important because I really had the difficulty with the gray zone, because it's not if we depict the South China Sea as gray zone, the problem. So even more transparency, I'm sure that it could not help. So of course, transparency assertion have different purposes. But the problem of the South China Sea from my perspective, lies on the imbalance of power in the region and also the strategic intent from different countries. So in order to work down, to stop, the vicious circle of security dilemma, we should, have the commitment of the great power, because the great power usually should come with the responsibility to make sure that, the region should not be fall into the arms race. And I think that if countries have enough armament to defend themselves, I think they should stop. Or otherwise, it could trigger, the action and reaction in the region to the point we could not return. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hai. And now I turn to the question from the online participant. Okay, we have 4 questions and 3 of them to Dr. Yan Nian Bao. And I would like to ask technical assistant, would you put it on the big screen so everyone can see it? Can you? No? Okay, so I read it. The first question from Khánh Hoàng, Bernie, to Dr. Jinan Bao. Question about the sustainability of the IOMAT. If it cannot be used or refers in future proceedings, as well as states have so much room to maneuver. The second question from DAV Captain Team 2, also to Dr. Jinan Bao. How can participants to IOMAT guarantee its effectiveness and good faith in the particular context of asymmetrical balance in the power between the disputing parties? The third one, Phương Anh from Da Nang University. IOMAT is an initiative proposed by China, but is it also a public good provided by China? If so, how are the panels of mediators and governing council chosen? May there be any bias toward China? Can it be reliable or for the Philippines and Vietnam to sign the convention? Yeah, would you, would you help me to see the fourth one? Okay, here only the three questions. What is the fourth question? Not yet? So in the meantime, then I would like to give the floor to Dr. Yan Bao.
Well, for the first question, I never think it's a question at all, because, even the ICJ decision are not binding on other parties. And, there's no rule of stare decisis in international law. For the second question, guarantees effectiveness, it's quite rare that for a dispute that the two parties are equally powerful. So I don't think it concerns with the mechanism of IO mode, because usually you find a party to a dispute is more powerful politically or economically than the other. So, the IOMAT is a third-party mechanism, and it does not concern with the power politics behind that. And for the third question, I can rest assure you that just like the PCA and other arbitration or conciliation procedure, you can nominate your own mediator or conciliator. I remember each party can nominate up to 10 mediator, can be your own national, can also be foreign nationals, just like the Philippines has done for the South China Sea arbitration. So rest assured, the Chinese government at least were not meddling in appointing the mediators. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yanan. So now the floor is open again for the third round of questions. I'd like to invite the gentleman on my left.
Hello, my name is Thomas Koenigs, and I work at the Netherlands Embassy in Vietnam. I have another question for Dr. Bao Inan about the IOMAT. First of all, the Netherlands is very proud to host many judicial institutions, including the Permanent Court of Arbitration, as well as the International Court of Justice. And The Hague, for that reason, is also called the City of Peace and Justice. In addition, UNCLOS, the foundation, actually stems from Mare Liberum, which is an international maritime legal book by Grotius, and the Netherlands is really proud for this connection with international law and maritime law specifically. Now, my question is about the complementarity and added value of IOMET. Many nations have, through their unilateral consent, ratified UNCLOS, which provides both voluntary and complementary, forceful procedures. So, what would then be the added value of IOMET when UNCLOS already exists and offers these mediation procedures?
Thank you. Okay, next we have Ambassador Nguyen. Yeah.
Thank you. My question to Dr. Bao, Commando Ray, and Mr. Ray Powell. In my view, the South China Sea is not only a maritime dispute, it is a test of the future regional order. And the real context is over control of norms and access. And the crises are most likely to emerge from gray zone escalation. So I want to hear your comments on these observations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Nguyen is here, the gentleman in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, microphone, please. Yeah. All right, you can turn on the microphone.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate this very candid dialogue. So, Mr. Tarela talked about Chinese actions, but however, according to the Beijing's perspective, that is the Philippines has done several provocations to, lead to the escalation in the South China Sea. Especially the Philippine government broke the tacit agreement between these two countries for sending the reply to the warship in the second Thomas Shaw, and even to send materials for constructing military facilities on the second Thomas Shaw. So I do think our Filipino friend need to think about the rationale of the Chinese responses or Chinese so-called muscle flexing actions. Are you aware of the red line of the Chinese side so far? These moves are aiming for kind of deterring the further escalation, and I hope this back and forth can help each other to be more attentive on the red lines of each side. My question actually goes to Mr. Powell. You talked about the assertive transparency as tactics. My worry is that such assertive transparency as tactics is that could be harmful for the effective diplomacy because it can, lead to the very rapid escalation. So that's my question. Another thing is about the security dilemma mentioned by Dr. Hai. My theory is that we are facing a big challenge. I call it a security dilemma complex because Chinese response to Philippines, moves partly linked to Philippines' involvement in the so-called Taiwan issue, especially Philippines welcome American military presence in northern Luzon and other regions. So we see a dangerous nexus between the Taiwan question and the South Chinese question. So my question is that, can we find ways to manage this nexus between different security spots in this region? Thank you.
Okay, so you are from which institutions?
I'm from Fudan University, China.
Okay, all right. We have one for the gentleman over there, and the last two for lady over there. Okay. The gentleman in the second row from the back.
Thank you very much for the mic. And I have a very big question for Dr. Jinan Bao. Sorry for my pronunciation. So, because of the IOMED establishment, I would like to know if we all take action, every nation to take action in coming up with new policies or actions to make the new standards of peace to help all the nations to enjoy the benefits amongst them with the lowest risk possible, and also if the IOMED rules they works, how can we make a connection between nations, especially with China, so that we can ease the increase in heat in the gray zone, so that we can maintain the long-term peace for everyone in every nation for the better union. That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you give mic for the lady over there on my right, far right?
Hello everyone, my name is Gwen and I am a DAV captain. I have two short questions for Dr. Bao Yinan. My first question concerns the relationship between the dispute resolution mechanism under UNCLOS and IMO. My question is that whether parties need to prove the exhaustion of UNCLOS remedies if they want to resolve the dispute through IMO, and secondly, can disputes refer in Article 298 UNCLOS, which are excluded from compulsory procedures by some states, be settled through the IMO mechanism? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I would like to take two more questions and then we closed. Anyone? Okay, yeah, the gentleman in the back.
Thank you so much. My name is Nguyen Tuan Khan. I'm from the Vietnam National University of Ho Chi Minh City. I want to pose a very short question to Dr. Yinan Bao about the IOMED, the new organization by China. So you mentioned that in your presentation that is the new resolution to solve the problem between China and the Philippines. So what do you think about the disadvantages of the existing UN clause and other custom of international law of the world right now? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I think the last question is to the gentleman in my far right again over there. Yeah, the third row from the back.
Hello, good morning. My name is Satria. I'm from Indonesia. My question goes to Dr. Beck Strating. Thank you so much. I think I really enjoy your explanations, and I think it's an amazing idea that you come with joint transparency initiatives to deal with selective interpretations to UNCLOS. And my question is very short. First of all, how would you deal with navigating this selective interpretation to UNCLOS, especially when ASEAN has a history of selective mutations before? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now we turn the floor to the representative now. I would like to take by order that Bao first. You are very demanding, 6 questions. And then say Jay again, and Ray, and Hai, and Beck, make a conclusion. Okay, so Bao.
So I think these questions can be categorized into similar types. One is concerned compatibility between UNCLOS settlement of disputes mechanism and the IOMED mechanism. As I have already mentioned in my presentation, the IOMED mechanism is fully compatible with those in the UNCLOS. On the UNCLOS, part 15 of the UNCLOS is the compulsory settlement of dispute mechanism. But the IOMED is more or less a voluntary mechanism. So the parties to use the IOMED procedure have more flexibility, and they can choose their own conciliator or mediator, and they can choose the specific rules for the procedure, and they can withdraw voluntarily, unilaterally at any time if they find that the procedure become uncontrollable. So that's a merit for the IOMED mechanism. And to this point, I think the IOMED mechanism can not only compatible with the compulsory mechanism of the UNCLOS, but also add more value to solve the settlements between different parties. And you see the settlement agreement of IOMED is binding, which can, in the UNCLOS sense, then it can replace the UNCLOS compulsory mechanism according to relevant provisions in Part 15 of the UNCLOS. And the state can also use the IOMED to address some kind of disputes that has been excluded by their declaration under Article 298 of the UNCLOS. For example, as I've mentioned, China did have declared that they do not accept the jurisdiction of the Part 15 compulsory mechanism for disputes involving historic titles, maritime delimitation, and territorial disputes and military activities. But they can still use IOMED to address these disputes. So this is to prove that the IOMED mechanism is somehow more flexible, more accessible to the dispute parties.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Yinan. Okay, Jay, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for 2 questions. First, I will address the question asked by Ambassador about the escalation of gray zone. You know, as what I mentioned during my presentation, in the Philippines, we don't call it gray zone anymore because for us, we call it outright violation of international law. These are unlawful, illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions. There's no gray area if you violate the international law. There's no gray area if you're going to, ignore the treaties that you signed to. These are all unlawful. For your second question, is it also a test of the regional order or the global order that we enjoy right now? I always take this opportunity to inform the international audience with this kind of Track 1.5 dialogue that our fight in the West Philippine Sea is not just a fight for the Philippines' sovereignty and sovereign rights. This is a fight for everybody who recognize the importance of the international law and the rules-based order. The one that is being challenged here by the People's Republic of China is actually the existing international law, the power of the international law. We have long established the rules-based order right now. And if we allow China to keep on changing inch per inch on a day-to-day basis, the interpretation of a law that is only benefiting for whatever interest they have in the South China Sea, we are undermining the future of the next generation of the humankind. For the second question of my Chinese friend, I always enjoy attending a South China Sea conference here in Vietnam, whether online or face-to-face, because I always get to receive questions from my Chinese friends. For the question, the Philippines, as he claimed, grounded BRP Sierra Madre in 1999. But let me first give you a historical background. In 1992, we kicked out the US bases. The 7th Fleet left already. The Philippine government is no longer under the protection of the security umbrella of the United States. 3 years after that, the Chinese took over Mischief Reef. For the information of everyone, Mischief Reef only has a distance of 130 nautical miles from the province of Palawan. Now, 4 years after, in 1999, because there is also an intelligence report that the Chinese will never stop in Mischief Reef. They will crawl in the adjacent shoals and areas in the West Philippine Sea. President Estrada decided to aground the Philippine naval vessel BRP Sierra Madre in 1999. My Chinese friend claims that the Philippines is militarizing the dispute. Look at the rusty BRP Sierra Madre. Is it a sign of militarizing South China Sea? What about the reclaimed islands that you have right now? From Fiery Cross to Seabury Reef to Gavin to Mischief Reef. All of this is already a military naval base that you even have a very long airstrip that you can land your bombers or jet fighters. Right, my friend? However, the Chinese do not want you to interpret this as a militarization, as what Xi Jinping promised to Barack Obama in 2015. When he went to the United States, he said, nobody in China is going to militarize all these reclaimed islands. 10 years after that, let's go back. Let's use the satellite of my boss, according to the Chinese trolls, that my boss is Ray Powell. Let us make use of his satellites that he is using. Let us look at all those reclaimed islands that they're using right now. I admire the Chinese academic whenever they have mental gymnastics to pretend that they're not the one militarizing the dispute. Because obviously, the Chinese government is doing everything possible to take over the entire South China Sea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Ray, please.
So I'm going to try to combine the questions asked in my direction in a couple of big thoughts. One is China has already signed UNCLOS, and it has signed the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. Most of us here know what UNCLOS says. Let me remind you that the Declaration of Conduct, the DOC, is only 5 articles long. 3 through 5 essentially say we will respect the freedom of navigation and UNCLOS. Again, China signed that, and yet routinely intercepts Philippine vessels 50 to 100 nautical miles from any feature and impedes their progress, impedes their freedom of navigation. Article 4 prohibits the threat and use of force. Can anybody say that China has obeyed or complied with that provision when we see the constant water cannoning, the constant ramming? We saw a 7,500-ton guided missile destroyer nearly collide with a 350-ton Philippine Coast Guard vessel near Scarborough Shoal just 2.5 months ago. And the 5th article basically says that all parties should exercise self-restraint. The essential problem is that China has not exercised self-restraint. So I want to go forward and talk about, who is provoking whom? Is assertive transparency causing the provocation? I live in Atherton, California. Whenever I tell people from the Bay Area that I live in Atherton, California, they look at me and they say, which mansion do you live in? Because all of my neighbors have mansions. I am the 2-bedroom rental on the corner that absorbs the road noise. If one of my neighbors one day moves the wall on the other side of my flower bed so that I can no longer get to my flower bed and stations 4 security guards there so that I can't go there anymore, and I try to go there and I'm pushed around by the security guards, and then I say to my wife, why don't you take a YouTube video of me trying to get to our flower bed that we used to be able to get to, and then she shows how these security guards are pushing me around and beating me up. Am I the one who is provoking them, or did they steal my flower bed? Right? So, I think to accuse the Philippines of provocation is an insult to the word provocation. So that entire line of argument, I think, is just sheer gaslighting, right? It is just trying to get you to doubt your own reality. I'm done.
Thank you, Nahai.
So I think that I need also to refer to the security dilemma because many people refer to that. But it would be wrong if you take security dilemma only a matter of capabilities. What the core for security dilemma come both from the increased capability and also the matter of intent. So if we can diffuse either two elements, we can do it because threat only come by a bigger offensive capability and your intent. If any country comply with the national law, behave under the established norms, so that could be any threat to anyone. Even, of course, everyone have the rights to buy arms to show up the defense. So I think that the root cause of the problem in the South China lies on the behavior. And we would urge all the countries, all the claimants, all the party involved, we will comply with with UNCLOS. We will comply with the principle of international law, particularly in United Nations Charter, so we could have the peaceful South China Sea. I think that is a problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. Beck.
Thank you. It's a great question. I mean, how do we create aligned strategic narratives when states have different interpretations on international law of the sea, particularly when it comes to navigation? I mean, ideally, it would be great if countries were able to harmonise these interpretations a little bit more. That might not be possible, but I would say that pragmatically, maritime order can deal with a certain level of difference in interpretation. If state practice is clear and consistent and you know where other countries are coming from. Differences between states on issues like navigation are one issue, but there's a much bigger problem. And the bigger problem is jurisdictional exceptionalism. And what I mean by this is China seeking to carve out an exemption from UNCLOS in the South China Sea, for example, by trying to promote domestic law over international law in this particular domain. This kind of action is, I don't know that maritime order can support that as well. And so when I talk about aligning strategic narratives around an UNCLOS-centred order, this is what I'm talking about, identifying the most problematic actions or behaviours to maritime order and trying to align a communication strategy collectively in order to be able to defend international law of the sea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very sorry that we can't take all of your questions, but you will have 1.5 days ahead, so we have more chances to put question and comment. And I think that we shouldn't waiting because lunch and very good food is waiting for us. So please join me to thank very excellent presenters and discussion from the floor. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gui, and our distinguished panelists for a truly comprehensive and data-rich discussion on recent maritime developments. We all have learned very much from you. Now, may I kindly invite Mr. Vũ Hải Đăng, expert from Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, for the book introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have 5 minutes for advertisement, please? We have been publishing a number of books based on the papers presented at the South China Sea International Conference and other events organized by the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. And most recently, we have published 2 books with thanks to the sponsoring from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, represented by the Embassy of the United Kingdom to Vietnam with Springer. The first book is South China Sea Epicenter of the Indo-Pacific, edited by Dr. Nguyễn Hùng Sơn, President of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, and Professor Lan Anh Nguyễn, Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. The book provides a deep dive into the competing strategies in the South China Sea. The second book is Viability of UNCLOS Amid Emerging Global Maritime Challenges, edited by Professor Lan Anh and myself. It provides an assessment of UNCLOS resilience and viability as a global framework for addressing emerging global maritime challenges. You can find those 2 books on the booth right outside the room, and they are open access. It means that you can look at them, you can download them to take home. And you can find those little cards on the booth where you can have the QR codes for the books. So please take them with you when you come outside. Thank you very much. I hope that next year you're going to have this presentation published in our next book. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lê Ang. Ladies and gentlemen, now we please enjoy your lunch break at the table 88, restaurant, 2nd floor, reception building at the Sheraton Hotel. Our support team will be available for guiding you to the venue, and we will reconvene at 1:30 for our next session, The Great Power Strategic Unambiguities. Online participants, do not forget that we will have a live commentary in Vietnamese hosted by Dr. Hà Anh Tuấn from Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam in a few minutes. The live commentary is in Vietnamese, so please join it when you speak the language. Thank you.
Vâng, xin chào quý vị và các bạn. Trong phiên 1 buổi sáng ngày hôm nay thì chúng ta đã được nghe một cái phiên rất là thú vị và sôi nổi về tình hình và diễn biến ở Biển Đông với sự tham dự của 5 diễn giả đến từ 5 quốc gia khác nhau, đem đến cho chúng ta những cái góc nhìn khác nhau về tình hình ở Biển Đông trong năm vừa qua. Tham dự cái phiên thảo luận, bình luận trưa ngày hôm nay thì xin giới thiệu chúng ta có Đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng ngồi bên cạnh tôi. Tiếp đến là chị bạn Nguyễn Thị Linh Nga là sinh viên ngành quan hệ quốc tế của Học viện Ngoại giao và ông Đỗ Mạnh Hoàng đến từ Viện Biển Đông. Còn tôi là Hà Anh Tuấn đến từ Quỹ hỗ trợ nghiên cứu Biển Đông. Sau đây thì chúng tôi sẽ rất là mong muốn được nghe các khách mời chia sẻ một số cái góc nhìn và đánh giá của chúng ta về cái phiên buổi sáng ngày hôm nay. Trước hết là xin được hỏi 3 vị khách mời là qua 4 cái tham luận trong cái phiên 1 vừa rồi thì ông bà đánh giá xem là các học giả đã nêu lên những cái vấn đề gì nổi bật và có những cái vấn đề nào mà theo ông bà là có thể đã chưa được nói đến hoặc là cần làm rõ thêm không ạ? Trước hết thì xin mời Đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng, xin mời ông chia sẻ thêm ạ.
Cảm ơn tiến sĩ Tuấn. Theo tôi đó thì trong cái cuộc họp sáng nay đó thì các đại biểu đã nêu khá nhiều vấn đề. Thì tôi thấy là có một số vấn đề mà rất là thiết thực và rất là thời sự. Ví dụ như là vấn đề nổi lên đó là cái va chạm giữa Trung Quốc và Philippines trong suốt 12 tháng qua. Cái thứ hai đó là việc thực thi chiến thuật vùng xám của Trung Quốc ở Biển Đông và nó gây ra cái cọ sát rất là lớn giữa Trung Quốc và Philippines. Và thứ ba là các diễn giả cũng nêu một số những cái tác động mới và các biện pháp xử lý. Thì trong đó có 4 biện pháp xử lý mà chúng tôi nghĩ là có thể là đáng suy nghĩ và đáng xem xét. Thứ nhất đó là vấn đề truyền thông. Thì bà diễn giả đó, bà có nói là cái sự tham gia của AI á, và deepfake vào cái này đó nó gây ra những cái hiểu lầm rất là tai hại. Thành thử ra đây là một cuộc chiến tranh truyền thông và thực sự cần phải có cái quản lý cái này như thế nào cho nó thích đáng. Cái thứ hai đó là tính minh bạch của các chính sách và các thông tin. Cái thứ ba đó là cơ chế hòa giải AOMS là cũng nêu ra do đại diện Trung Quốc nêu lên thì cũng là được rất nhiều đại biểu quan tâm. Và cái thứ tư đó là tất nhiên là vấn đề nó cũng không phải mới nhưng là được các đại biểu nhấn mạnh rất nhiều là việc tuân thủ luật pháp quốc tế và việc thực thi áp dụng luật pháp quốc tế như thế nào trong những tranh chấp ở Biển Đông. Nhưng ngoài ra chúng tôi thấy là có lẽ cũng có 2 vấn đề lớn mà cần được tiếp tục bàn và mổ xẻ thêm. Thứ nhất đó, tôi nghĩ là cái trạng thái hiện nay ở Biển Đông đó, ít nhất trong năm qua là như thế nào thì xác định nó các đại biểu thì chỉ nêu lên các hiện tượng. Thế nhưng mà anh chốt lại một cái câu là cái hiện trạng này nó như thế nào thì theo tôi nghĩ đó là một trạng thái căng thẳng nhưng mà không ổn định. Tiếng Anh hay người ta nói là stable and yet precarious. Thì nhưng và đồng thời đó cũng phải dự báo thế là vậy cái hiện trạng này tiếp tục như thế nào trong 2-3 năm tới. Đấy cũng rất là cần thiết đối với khu vực. Cái điểm thứ hai đó là có lẽ là cũng phải nêu lên một cái điểm nữa là trong thời gian vừa qua cũng như trong 2-3 năm tới đó thì cái tính cạnh tranh của các cái dự án về khai thác kinh tế thương mại đó trong khu vực sẽ tăng lên bởi vì có những cái quyết định đơn phương quy định như là thí dụ như là khu bảo tồn thiên nhiên, khu bảo tồn sinh thái chẳng hạn thì có thể nó sẽ va chạm với lợi ích của các cái dự án khai thác kinh tế và thương mại trong khu vực. Thì tôi nghĩ là cũng có thể là một điểm mà trong 2-3 năm tới nó sẽ tăng lên. Tôi xin chia sẻ một số ý kiến như vậy.
Dạ vâng, xin cảm ơn Đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng. Tiếp theo xin mời bạn Linh Nga.
Dạ vâng ạ, thì sáng nay em đã có quan sát rất là kỹ về 4 cái phiên thảo luận buổi sáng và em bổ sung thêm một số những cái ý như sau. Thứ nhất là em có nghe thấy Beck Starring nói về diễn ngôn, nghĩa là các nước ở Đông Nam Á đang định hình diễn ngôn về Biển Đông như thế nào. Và thứ hai là cũng có nói về các cái ngoại giao văn hóa và các cái nước ở trong khu vực này sẽ thực hiện các cái hoạt động đó thông qua truyền tải văn hóa ở trong khu vực và trong cái nước của mình như thế nào thì để truyền tải được cái tính chính danh của họ ở trên Biển Đông. Bên cạnh đó thì những cái vấn đề quan trọng nào chưa được nhắc đến cần làm rõ hơn thì theo em trong cái bối cảnh toàn cầu hóa hiện nay với sự phát triển đặc biệt của công nghệ thông tin và đặc biệt là sự phát triển của vũ khí AI thì em nghĩ là military AI là một vấn đề mà cũng đáng để cân nhắc đến. Bây giờ thì đặt trong bối cảnh là Việt Nam mình đi chẳng hạn thì Việt Nam mình em nhớ rằng là hồi đầu 2025 đã có một cái phương án về kế hoạch phát triển quy hoạch không gian biển và nhờ cái kế hoạch quy hoạch không gian biển đấy thì mình có thể phát triển cơ sở hạ tầng theo một cái phương hướng tốt hơn và rõ ràng là các cái nước lớn và có tầm ảnh hưởng như là Trung Quốc thì họ đã ứng dụng được rất là nhiều những cái vũ khí công nghệ hiện đại hóa và không chỉ những cái nước lớn mà những cái nước tầm trung như mình hiện nay cũng đang bắt đầu vào những cái cuộc chơi của những cái cuộc chạy đua của vũ khí công nghệ này và trong một cái bối cảnh mà hiện nay quản trị toàn cầu chưa hề có một cái chuẩn mực nào về vũ khí thì rõ ràng đây là một cái vấn đề mà em nghĩ rằng là cũng là một vấn đề quan trọng mà mình cần phải định hình trong cái khu vực Biển Đông bởi vì tranh chấp thì chắc chắn sẽ phải liên quan và sử dụng đến những cái an ninh truyền thống. Em xin cảm ơn ạ.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn bạn Linh Nga. Tiếp theo tôi đã nhìn thấy anh Mạnh Hoàng hình như là cũng muốn chia sẻ bên cạnh những thông tin còn có một cái sản phẩm gì đấy. Xin mời anh Mạnh Hoàng.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn Phó Giáo sư Tiến sĩ Hà Anh Tuấn. Thì tôi cũng rất là chia sẻ ý kiến của Đại sứ Hùng. Đấy là cái điều mà tâm đắc nhất trong cái phiên vừa rồi. Đó là qua tất cả các cái bài trình bày của các diễn giả thì chúng ta thấy được một cái bức tranh khá là toàn diện về Biển Đông. Chúng ta thấy là các diễn giả nói về những cái diễn biến tập trung chủ yếu là về diễn biến trên thực địa. Thế nhưng mà cũng có những diễn biến liên quan đến pháp lý, cũng có những diễn biến liên quan đến ngoại giao và đặc biệt là có những cái diễn biến liên quan đến mặt trận thông tin tuyên truyền là cái khía cạnh mà thường ít được để ý nhưng mà càng ngày càng trở nên nổi bật ở trong cái tranh chấp Biển Đông hoặc là tình hình an ninh biển tại Biển Đông. Và ngoài ra thì một cái điều mà tôi cũng tâm đắc đấy là trên cái mặt thực địa đấy thì các diễn giả tập trung rất là nhiều vào vấn đề là những cái hoạt động mà mang tính chất vùng xám và có một cái nét cũng rất là hay đấy là diễn giả của Philippines cũng nói đến những cái cách định nghĩa khác nhau đang tồn tại về cái khái niệm vùng xám thì có thể là phía Mỹ hiểu vùng xám là thế này, phía Trung Quốc hiểu vùng xám là thế khác và Philippines họ nhấn mạnh cái cách đặt tên mới cho những cái hoạt động vùng xám của họ là bằng cái chữ ICAD, ICAD đó thì và họ nhấn mạnh vào những cái hoạt động mà mang tính chất cưỡng ép và phi pháp thì nó cũng là một cái cách hiểu khác về mặt vùng xám mà chúng ta có thể thấy rõ ràng hơn. Thế nhưng mà nếu mà có gọi là ước nguyện được nghe thêm những cái nội dung khác thì tôi cũng muốn được nghe thêm hai cái nội dung sau đây. Thứ nhất là khi mà chúng ta nói về những cái bức tranh về các diễn biến trên Biển Đông mà nói về khía cạnh thực địa thì tôi cũng muốn nghe thêm là không chỉ là có những cái đụng độ giữa Philippines và Trung Quốc ở trên mặt nước hay là những cái diễn biến mà ở trên mặt biển hay thôi mà tôi cũng muốn nghe thêm về những cái diễn biến ở những cái mặt trận khác liên quan đến thực địa, đặc biệt là mặt trận ở phía trên mặt biển, tức là vùng trời và đặc biệt là gần đây là chúng ta thấy có những cái đụng độ liên quan đến Trung Quốc và Úc và trước đấy thì đã có rất nhiều lần đụng độ giữa có những cái hành động mà Trung Quốc hoặc là phía Mỹ gọi là những cái dangerous interception, tức là những cái hành động gọi là áp sát một cách nguy hiểm hoặc là thiếu chuyên nghiệp. Và ngoài ra thì tôi cũng rất muốn nghe thêm về những cái diễn biến liên quan đến cái mặt trận, cái không gian gọi là ở dưới mặt biển. Ví dụ như là những diễn biến liên quan đến cáp ngầm, những cái thách thức có thể xảy ra với hệ thống cáp ngầm tại Biển Đông. Đặc biệt là khi mà năm vừa rồi thì chúng ta có thấy là Trung Quốc họ công bố những cái thiết bị mới mà có khả năng cắt cáp ngầm dưới đáy biển chẳng hạn. Đó thì đó là những cái vấn đề liên quan đến thực địa mà mà tôi muốn nghe thêm. Thế còn cái điều thứ hai mà tôi muốn nghe thêm là liên quan đến mặt trận tuyên truyền. Thì lúc nãy thì cũng có đặt câu hỏi cho diễn giả về cái chiến dịch minh bạch hóa của Philippines. Thì tôi cũng muốn nghe thêm về những cái điểm mạnh và những cái điểm còn hạn chế của chiến dịch minh bạch hóa đấy. Đặc biệt là những cái cách tiếp cận minh bạch hóa khác nhau, hoặc là có thực sự Philippines là đang minh bạch hóa toàn bộ những cái diễn biến ở trên Biển Đông hay không, thì đó cũng là một cái câu hỏi mà tôi cũng muốn được nghe thêm từ phía các diễn giả. Xin cảm ơn.
Vâng, rất cảm ơn anh có cái chia sẻ rất là sâu thêm. Thực ra là sau cái phiên thảo luận và thậm chí là cọ sát ý tưởng của buổi sáng, tôi đã thấy rất là thú vị rồi. Thì nghe cái phần bình luận của ba khách mời này, tôi còn cảm thấy là còn rất nhiều các thứ chúng ta có thể tranh luận. Thế nhưng mà cái câu hỏi thứ hai chúng ta đặt ra là với rất nhiều các cái ý tưởng khác nhau, với rất nhiều các cái vấn đề khác nhau nó tác động lên Biển Đông, vậy thì theo quý vị thì đâu sẽ là cái nhân tố chính mà nó tác động lên đến tình hình Biển Đông trong thời gian tới? Trước hết là xin mời bạn Linh Nga đấy ạ.
Đối với em thì cá nhân em là một người rất là quan tâm về lĩnh vực an ninh truyền thống, và rõ ràng là an ninh truyền thống là một cái biểu hiện clear nhất để mình có thể thấy rằng là cái cạnh tranh xung đột ở khu vực Biển Đông. Và em nghĩ rằng cái nhân tố chính ở đây ấy, thì cái biến động rõ nhất là mọi người sẽ thấy là các cái sự kiện va chạm và các cái việc mà những cái quốc gia ở trong khu vực này đặt các cái gọi là vũ khí tự động hóa, rồi phát triển những cái liên quan đến AI ở trong khu vực này. Và chính riêng Trung Quốc thôi thì về chiến lược A2AD ấy, thì đã có rất nhiều những cái phát minh được ra đời vào thời điểm này, và những cái liên minh quốc phòng mà Việt Nam mình tham gia như ADMM cộng hay là những cái ASEAN Maritime Mechanism thì nó đều phản ánh rằng là Việt Nam mình đang du nhập và đang vừa du nhập các cái sản xuất chuyển giao vũ khí, và mình vừa tiếp thu học hỏi từ vũ khí của những nước khác. Ví dụ như là Nga thì mình đã có sự cái chuyển giao của cái vấn đề là 6 tàu Kilo 636 của Nga, và rõ ràng là những cái hành động đấy thì nó thể hiện rằng là Việt Nam mình đang rất là tích cực trong việc bảo vệ chủ quyền. Và chủ quyền ở đây mình sẽ bảo vệ rõ nhất bằng việc là mình tạo ra một cái vòng đai an toàn nhất bằng chính những cái mà mình có thể hiện rõ nhất. Và cái biến động này mình không thể nào mình đoán trước được, bởi vì là những cái xung đột truyền thống thì nó có thể xảy ra bất cứ lúc nào. Đương nhiên là xung đột truyền thống và xung đột phi truyền thống nó sẽ đều luôn song hành với nhau. Tuy nhiên thì đối với một người như em, với cái kiến thức của em trong 3 năm học thì em tin rằng là những cái hiện rõ nhất sẽ là những cái nguy cơ mà mình cần phải đề phòng trước tiên. Em xin cảm ơn ạ.
Vâng, cảm ơn bà Linh Nga. Xin mời anh Hoàng ạ.
Theo tôi thì yếu tố, Phó giáo sư tiến sĩ Hà Anh Tuấn có hỏi về yếu tố quyết định tình hình Biển Đông trong thời gian tới, đúng không ạ? Thì theo tôi yếu tố mà không thể không nhắc đến, không chỉ là trong thời gian tới mà là trong hiện tại và cả trong quá khứ, đấy là hành xử của các nước lớn. Đặc biệt ở đây là chúng ta đã nói đến hành xử của Trung Quốc và Mỹ. Bởi vì sao? Bởi vì nước lớn là những, một là họ là bên tranh chấp, bên tham gia tranh chấp Biển Đông, hoặc nếu không phải bên tham gia tranh chấp thì là bên có lợi ích và khẳng định là mình có lợi ích tại Biển Đông. Và thứ hai là họ có đủ sức mạnh để thay đổi diễn biến ở trên thực địa, họ có đủ sức mạnh, đủ công cụ để có thể thiết lập những cái luật chơi mới hoặc là phá vỡ những cái luật chơi cũ. Họ có thể hợp tác với nhau hoặc là họ có thể cạnh tranh với nhau và làm thay đổi hoàn toàn cục diện tại Biển Đông. Đó cũng là lý do mà tôi rất là mong chờ đến phiên 2, tại vì trong phiên 2 chúng ta sẽ nói về chính sách của các nước lớn tại Biển Đông, và không chỉ có Mỹ và Trung Quốc mà chúng ta còn có tiếng nói của Nga, chúng ta còn có tiếng nói của EU và chúng ta còn có tiếng nói của ASEAN. Cách mà ASEAN ứng phó hoặc là cách ASEAN thể hiện vai trò khi mà các nước lớn đều đưa ra những cái tầm nhìn khác nhau về khu vực và tại Biển Đông. Và tôi cũng, nếu mà có 1 phút tranh thủ thì tôi cũng xin giới thiệu luôn, đấy là ấn phẩm của Viện Biển Đông mới ra cùng với Hội thảo Biển Đông lần thứ 17 này. Trong ấn phẩm này thì chúng tôi cũng có khắc họa cái bức tranh tình hình Biển Đông trong vòng 10 tháng qua một số số liệu, qua một số hình ảnh đồ thị được thể hiện rất là công phu bởi các anh chị em trong Viện Biển Đông. Và trong này thì chúng tôi cũng có đề cập đến vai trò của các nước lớn tại Biển Đông nữa, thì cũng rất là mong khán giả, độc giả của nghiên cứu Biển Đông cũng như là những khán giả đang theo dõi Hội thảo Biển Đông có thể tham khảo ấn phẩm này. Xin cảm ơn.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn anh Hoàng. Xin mời đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng ạ.
Tôi xin chia sẻ ý kiến cá nhân như thế này. Đúng là công nghệ mới thì chắc chắn sẽ có tác động. Thế nhưng mà suy cho cùng thì quyết định lại ra cho người chơi. Phải không ạ? Thành thử theo tôi nghĩ có 3 nhân tố mà quyết định đến tình hình khu vực, đến cục diện khu vực và đến đến quá trình phát triển và an ninh của khu vực. Thứ nhất, chia sẻ với lại anh Hoàng thôi, là cái cạnh tranh giữa các nước lớn và trước hết là cạnh tranh Mỹ Trung. Bởi vì hoặc là đối đầu hoặc là thỏa hiệp giữa các nước lớn đều tác động đến an ninh và phát triển của khu vực và tác động đến tính toán của các nước nhỏ trong khu vực. Họ sẽ phải tính toán cách xử lý. Đấy là cái nhân tố thứ nhất. Nhân tố thứ hai đó là sự đoàn kết và vai trò trung tâm của các nước ASEAN, nhất là những nước có tranh chấp giữa họ với Trung Quốc. Thứ ba đó là việc tôn trọng và thực thi luật pháp quốc tế, trong đó có luật biển 82, và đặc biệt là cách diễn giải khác nhau của các nước đối với việc thực thi luật pháp quốc tế và luật biển. Thì đây là 3 vấn đề then chốt nhất. Nếu thực hiện nghiêm túc, đúng đắn thì sẽ quyết định tích cực đến tình hình Biển Đông, đến tình hình khu vực Đông Nam Á và đến cái quá trình tìm kiếm giải pháp cho những tranh chấp ở trên Biển Đông. Thì tôi nghĩ đây là những 3 vấn đề then chốt nhất mà quyết định đối với tình hình khu vực ở Biển Đông.
Vâng, xin cảm ơn đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng. Như vậy là qua những cái phần trao đổi vừa rồi, chúng ta thấy là đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng cùng với hai khách mời khác cũng đã chia sẻ những cái kỳ vọng vào cái phiên họp vào buổi chiều ngày hôm nay. Và như vậy là chúng ta thấy là cái phiên họp buổi chiều này sẽ còn tiếp tục thú vị và rất là mong các quý vị đón xem. Cái buổi thảo luận của chúng tôi có cái sự cân bằng rất rõ ràng giữa những nhà nghiên cứu và nhà ngoại giao cừ cựu như là đại sứ Nguyễn Đức Hùng cùng với thế hệ trẻ sinh viên của Học viện Ngoại giao và cán bộ nghiên cứu đang ở cái độ chín của sự nghiệp của mình. Nên là rất là hy vọng đã cung cấp cho quý vị khán giả những cái góc nhìn rất là khác nhau và từ đó góp phần giúp cho chúng ta có thêm những cái ý tưởng mới, những cái suy nghĩ mới trước khi chúng ta tham dự cái phiên chiều ngày hôm nay ạ. Xin cảm ơn tất cả quý vị ạ. Xin cảm ơn các khách mời ạ.